Living in the city, folks, living in the city. Hi, beautiful people. I'm Chamaya. It's like papaya, except it's not. And this is Plot Twist Please. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you like what I'm saying to you. In case you don't know, I like to talk about autism. I like to talk about being Black and being a creative person in a creative industry, encompassing all of those identities that I have. Come on along for this little ride here. Beep beep. This is another mini-sode. So today I want to talk about autism/ASD and communication. Talk to me, 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 talk to me. So once upon a time, there was a study done where there was a game of telephone, and what the study came to find was that when the room was neurodiverse, meaning it was a mix of neurotypical people and neurodivergent people, then 9 times out of 10, the message wouldn't come through clear. You know, the message would somewhere along the line get warped. And if you said, hey, like I have 10 cats, then someone along the line thought you said I have 5 bats or something like that. But when it was just a room full of neurodivergent people, the message stayed exactly the same. And when there was a room full of only neurotypical people, the message stayed exactly the same. I think there are more neurodivergent people around here than we realize. I think that we're just kind of like hiding or are undiagnosed. Here's the thing. If you ask the average person, 9 times out of 10, they're going to say that when they play telephone, the message gets warped somewhere in the middle. You know, the message that they start with is not the message that they end with. And if that's the case, then don't you think that there are more neurodivergent people out here than what is traditionally thought, which is 1 in 100, which is 1%? I think there might be more of us out there than that. Because if in every room that you sit in and you play telephone, the message gets warped, you must be in a room full of at least 1 or 2 neurodivergent people. I hope that made some kind of sense. Speaking of making sense, let's talk about the fact that a lot of people consider autistic people to not really make sense in terms of how we communicate. When, from my perspective, as an autistic person, it seems like neurodivergent people make the most sense in terms of how we communicate, because we tend to be very direct, and neurotypical people, or people who are not neurodivergent in any way, they tend to rely on hinting or beating around the bush or certain unspoken rules or cues rather than hitting it directly on the head. And that can be really confusing for autistic people who don't catch on to social cues. It can be super confusing, and it can also be really frustrating when we are feeling like what we're trying to say isn't coming across or we're being misunderstood. A lot of us, when we're younger, we spend a lot of time and energy trying to be understood by the people around us because someone might misinterpret our communication style as us being aggressive. If you're a person of color, then even more so. Or us being annoyed when we're just not interested in what somebody's saying. But yeah, it can be really frustrating to spend so much time trying to figure out how to communicate with people when you know that 9 times out of 10 they're going to misinterpret your tone or not understand what you're trying to communicate to them. It's actually really interesting when you're just getting to know people, because I'm very direct. I think it's a waste of time to beat around the bush, honestly. I think it's a waste of energy because you only have so much of it. So sometimes when I'm very direct with people, they'll kind of be taken aback, like, oh, okay. When I'm just saying exactly what I mean. Like, I'm just saying it without the extra fluff. I have to be really careful of that, and a lot of autistic people do. But it's just one of those things. It's one of those extra things that we tend to have to do when it seems like there aren't very many people who are trying to do the same for us. So it's just a very interesting predicament. One of the best ways that I found to communicate with people is either face-to-face, where I can see all of the facial expressions that they're making. I can kind of gauge the urgency of what they're trying to tell me. I'm better now at reading inflections and that sort of thing. And I'm an actress too, so I kind of have gotten good at it with that. But it's just easier to tell what exactly someone wants from you in that moment when it's that face-to-face interaction. I'm not a fan of texting. A lot of autistic people actually hate texting because there's so much room for error. The margin of error is just huge, and sometimes you can misinterpret whether someone wants you to respond then and there, whether they want to give you time to respond, whether it's polite to take the time to respond. And oftentimes too, I get engulfed in something after I look at a text message and I forget the text message happened, and then I feel guilty for responding so late. So, if you have an autistic loved one, just be more considerate about contacting them through text, because they really are doing their best to just make it through the day. Even though it does take a lot of energy to interact with people face to face and to be able to give off all the right signals right on the spot. It's kind of like an impromptu performance that we have to do every single day. Even though that does take a lot of our energy, texting does make it harder for us to actually understand what the person wants from us, especially if the person doesn't use tone indicators. Now, tone indicators are something that you can use in an email or a text or even in a caption on a social media platform to let autistic people know, or someone who may not be very in tune with the different social cues and the different social rules, to let them know whether something's a joke or whether someone is actually angry when they're sending this message or making light of something. I will link something below to show you a longer, more consolidated list of tone indicators that you can use in your text or email or caption communications. But they're so helpful for us to just be like, oh, that's what this person means. That's how this person feels about what they're saying. I'm almost teaching an acting class right now because we talk about this kinds of stuff all the time in acting classes. It's like, it's one thing to have the text and to have the dialogue that the character says in a play or a movie or whatever, but it's another thing to have an opinion on what you're actually saying, because no one says something out of a vacuum. Everyone, when they say something, has an opinion on what they're saying. So just being more cognizant of that when you're communicating with autistic people is so helpful to us. And also just being patient with us and knowing that there are 3 things that we basically need when it comes to communication. The first thing is directness/clarity. We need you to be very direct with what it is you want from us, the exact information that you're trying to relay to us, and just being very specific about it and not beating around the bush, because Chile, there's nothing that drives me up the wall more than someone assuming that I'm going to know something because they hinted at it once, or because there are these context clues that I was supposed to gather, like I'm Sherlock Holmes. Here's the thing, I'm not. And more so, I'm a human who's busy. We're not gonna catch on to your subtle cues. No. Think about how many things you have to pay attention to and say that you tend to get overstimulated by certain things in your environment. Think about how many things you have to pay attention to throughout the day. Dog crossing the street, or a stranger yelling at you if you live in the city. Horns from cars that are trying to get by. Noticing a raise of an eyebrow or a smirk might not be our top priority because we're just overflooded with everything else. So just be patient with us in that and be direct and clear with how you communicate with us. The second thing that we need in terms of communication is, this one kind of goes along with the first one, but what we really need is for you to indicate your tone, and that could be with using the text tone indicators, or it could be with the preface, or starting out a conversation with, especially if it's you bringing up a grievance with us, you can start it out with, I'm not mad at you, but this is making things really difficult for me. You could even say, if you're making a joke, but it can be sarcasm, or it can be you poking fun at us in a fun way. Not like actually bullying us, because we don't need that. But like, if it's something like, oh my gosh, you're always late, or oh my gosh, you always have such crazy ideas, and you mean it as a compliment, or you mean it as you're not chastising us, we need you to make that clear. Because I tend to take things personally like that, especially having a history of being bullied. And a lot of autistic people do have a history of being bullied. So being very clear about, oh, I'm just kidding with you, or making a laugh, having a laugh at the end of the statement, or, doing a playful, something, doing a thing that makes it clear to us that you were joking is really helpful to us. And it helps us get a better idea of the security of the relationship that you have with us. And the third thing that we need from you in terms of communication is for you to be honest with us. And that kind of goes along with the first one, being clear and direct. But for you to be honest with moments when we've crossed a boundary. And that's harder, I think, than being clear and direct, because I think if something is logistical, if something has to do with just something that's a fact, then it's easier to be direct. But if something has to do with your emotions that we've bruised, it's so important that you bring that up sooner rather than later. Let me edit that. Be honest as soon as possible. Don't wait. Don't wait till the 7th time where we've upset you or where we've hurt your feelings, where we've disrespected you in some way. If it happens once, maybe it was a fluke. If it happens twice, we're going to make a habit out of it. So just make it so clear how you're feeling and just be really honest with us immediately. I know this was a really short and snappy video, but the sun's going down and I don't want to lose my light, okay? And I want to have these mini-sodes just kind of popping out like, you know, popcorn. I want y'all to be able to chew them up, put them in your pocket for later, and not feel flooded with information, okay? I want to keep it in like small snackable doses with these mini-sodes, all right? Thank you guys so much for joining me today. Happy November. In case you were wondering, I am going to do Vlogmas. We'll see what happens. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And stay weird, y'all. Okay, bye-bye.